I never imagined my heart would break on a quiet Tuesday morning in December. I was standing in my kitchen on the north side of Chicago, waiting for my coffee to finish brewing, when my phone buzzed on the counter. The snow outside was falling softly, the kind that makes the city feel hushed and gentle, like it is holding its breath. For a moment, I thought it might be a weather alert or a message from my neighbor asking if I needed anything from the store. It was my son. The message was short. No greeting, no warmth. Do not expect us for Christmas. We are going to my wife's parents. They are more important. I read it once, then again, then a third time, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less cruel if I stared long enough. They are more important. The coffee machine beeped, sharp and cheerful, completely unaware that something inside me had just collapsed. I did not move. I did not pick up the mug. I stood there staring at the screen, feeling that strange pressure in my chest that comes when your body knows the truth before your mind is ready to accept it. I am 69 years old. I am a widow. I live alone in the brick house my husband and I bought more than 40 years ago, back when this street was louder and our lives were fuller. My husband, Daniel, passed away 3 winters ago. Since then, my world has grown smaller, quieter, centered around routines and memories, and the one person I still believed would always choose me, my son, Evan. For most of his life, Christmas meant coming home. Even as an adult, even after he married, he always made it work. Sometimes late, sometimes rushed, but he came. We drank cocoa, exchanged gifts, sat in the same living room where he once tore open wrapping paper as a little boy. That was why this message felt unreal. Not just the decision, but the way it was delivered. No explanation, no apology. Just a statement that I ranked somewhere below his wife's family, as if love were a competition I had already lost. My fingers hovered over the screen. I could have typed a dozen responses. I could have asked what I had done wrong. I could have reminded him that I was alone, that Christmas was hard for me now, that I missed him. Instead, I did nothing. I locked the phone and set it face down on the counter. The kitchen felt suddenly too quiet, too big. Outside, a plow rumbled past, scraping the street clean. Life continued, indifferent and steady. I told myself I would answer later, but deep down, something had already shifted. I did not know it yet, but that message was not just a rejection. It was a warning. Before that message, before the silence and the shock, my life had been built around one simple belief. If you loved your child enough, if you sacrificed enough, everything would work out in the end. I had lived by that belief for nearly 7 decades. I met my husband Daniel when we were both in our 20s, 2 ordinary people trying to build something solid in a city that never slowed down. He worked long hours as a city electrician, climbing ladders in freezing winters and sweltering summers. I worked as an administrative assistant at a small medical office downtown, a job that paid modestly but steadily. We were never wealthy, but we were careful. Every dollar had a purpose: rent, groceries, a little savings, and someday a future for the child we hoped to have. When Evan was born, everything else became secondary. I still remember holding him for the first time, his tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and promising myself that I would give him every opportunity we never had. Daniel and I opened a savings account before Evan was even 6 months old. It started small, a little set aside from each paycheck. No vacations some years, no new furniture when the old ones still worked. We told ourselves we were investing in something far more important. Evan grew up knowing he was loved. I attended every school play, every parent meeting, every late-night talk when he struggled with friendships or grades. Daniel taught him how to ride a bike, how to fix a loose outlet, how to be responsible. When Evan left for college, I cried for days, but I was proud. We paid what we could, filled the gaps, told him not to worry. Education mattered. His future mattered. After graduation, things were not easy for him. He bounced between jobs, uncertain and frustrated. Daniel and I helped quietly. Rent 1 month, groceries another. Never with conditions, never keeping score. When Daniel died unexpectedly, the world shifted beneath my feet. I lost my partner, my anchor. Evan became my reason to keep going. After the funeral, he checked on me often at first. Dinners together, long phone calls, promises that I would never be alone. When he met his wife, Laura, I welcomed her with open arms. She was polished, confident, always smiling. She called me sweet and told me how lucky Evan was to have such a caring mother. I wanted to believe we were becoming a bigger family. As the years passed, my routine settled into something quiet but meaningful. Morning coffee by the window, volunteer shifts at the community pantry, church on Sundays. I did not need much. My happiness came from knowing my son was safe, supported, and loved. Looking back now, I can see the subtle changes. The way conversations became shorter. The way help turned into expectation. The way gratitude slowly disappeared. But at the time, I told myself it was normal. Children grow, lives get busy, love remains. That belief carried me forward. Until it didn't. The first time Evan asked me for money again, it sounded reasonable, almost harmless. It was a phone call late one evening, his voice tight in that familiar way that told me he was stressed. He said his car had broken down at the worst possible time. Repairs were expensive, and he needed it for work. Just a short loan, he promised, a few $1,000s. He would pay me back as soon as things stabilized. I said yes without hesitation. That was what mothers did. We helped. We trusted. A few months later, there was another call. This time it was about a business opportunity that had not gone as planned. He and Laura were trying to get ahead, he said. Things were tight. Could I help them cover a few expenses until the next contract came through? Again, I said yes. I told myself it was temporary. Life was unpredictable. Daniel and I had struggled too when we were young. Someone had helped us once. This was my turn to be that someone. The requests became more frequent after that, always wrapped in urgency. Medical bills Laura supposedly needed to pay quickly. A rent increase they had not expected. A home repair that could not wait. Each time, Evan sounded embarrassed, apologetic. Each time, he assured me it was the last time. I never saw bills, never saw invoices, never questioned him. I trusted my son more than I trusted my own doubts. What I did start doing, quietly, was keeping notes. Not because I suspected him, but because something inside me wanted order. Dates, amounts, reasons. I wrote them in a small notebook I kept in the drawer beside my bed. At first it felt silly. Then it became sobering. The numbers added up faster than I expected. As the money flowed out, something else slowly drained away. Evans stopped calling just to talk. When he did call, it was brief and distracted. Laura's voice often filled the background, correcting him, finishing his sentences. Plans to meet were postponed. Holidays were rushed or skipped entirely. Thanksgiving came and went with a quick message. "We are busy this year. Maybe next time." I ate alone that night, watching the news while my food grew cold. I told myself not to take it personally. Families changed, traditions evolved. This was adulthood. But loneliness has a way of sharpening your awareness. By the time Christmas decorations appeared in store windows, I looked back at my notebook and felt a chill that had nothing to do with winter. The total sat there on the page, undeniable. Tens of thousands of dollars. Money I had never expected to see again, though no one had said that out loud. I still believed Evan loved me. I still believed this was just a rough season. What I did not yet understand was that somewhere along the way, helping had turned into something else entirely. And I was the only one who had not noticed when the line was crossed. By the time December settled in, Chicago was wrapped in gray skies and early darkness. The city felt heavier, quieter, as if everyone was bracing for winter. I decorated my house the way I always did, not because anyone asked me to, but because routine was the last thing that made the days feel normal. I put a small tree by the living room window. I hung the same ornaments Daniel and I had collected over decades. The glass bell from our first Christmas, the crooked star Evan made in second grade. I told myself that even if things felt strained, he would come. He always did. Christmas had a way of pulling him back. A week before the holiday, I texted him. Just a simple question. "Are you still coming for Christmas?" The reply came hours later. "Yes, we will be there." Relief washed over me so quickly it almost made me dizzy. I started planning meals, wrapping gifts, baking cookies I knew he liked. I let myself hope again. I told myself the distance had been temporary, the money issues just stress, nothing more. Then came the Tuesday morning message, the one that ended everything. After I set my phone down on the counter, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time. The house was silent, except for the ticking clock above the stove. I did not cry, not yet. Instead, my thoughts felt unusually clear, almost cold. I remembered something Daniel used to say when decisions were hard. Do not react, act. So I opened my laptop. I logged into my bank accounts slowly, deliberately. Accounts I had opened years ago with Evan's name attached. Accounts meant for emergencies, for his future, for peace of mind. I stared at the balances and felt something tighten in my stomach. Then I noticed something I had never really looked at before. Recent transactions. There were transfers I did not recognize, small at first, then larger. Withdrawals I knew I had not approved. My heart began to pound, not from fear, but from realization. I had not just been generous, I had been careless. One by one, I changed the access permissions. I removed Evan's name. I transferred funds into a new account under my name only. Each click felt heavy, final. I paused more than once, my finger hovering, wondering if I was overreacting. But then I saw that message again in my mind. They are more important. When I finished, I leaned back in my chair, my hands trembling. I had protected myself, but I also knew what would happen next. Evan would notice. He would ask questions. He would not be calm. That evening, my phone stayed silent. No calls, no texts. The quiet felt ominous, like the stillness before a storm. I barely slept that night. The next morning, just after 9, I heard a knock at the front door. Not a gentle knock, not the kind from a neighbor. This one was sharp and insistent. My heart sank as I stood up slowly and walked toward the door, already knowing who was on the other side, and knowing that whatever came next would change everything. I did not open the door right away. I stood in the hallway, one hand resting against the wall, listening as the knock came again, louder this time, urgent, demanding. Through the frosted glass, I could see a familiar shape shifting impatiently on my front porch. When I finally unlocked the door and opened it a few inches, Evan was standing there with Laura beside him. He looked nothing like the calm, confident man I remembered from just a few years ago. His jaw was tight, his eyes restless. Laura's arms were crossed, her expression already sharp, as if she had come prepared for a fight. "What did you do?" Evan asked immediately. No greeting, no concern, just accusation. "I'm not sure what you mean," I said, keeping my voice steady. "The accounts," he snapped. "The savings account, the emergency fund. I logged in this morning and everything is gone." Laura stepped forward, her heel hitting the porch with a sharp click. "You moved our money," she said. "You had no right." I felt something shift inside me then. Not fear, not guilt. Something firmer. "I moved my money," I corrected. "The money I earned. The money your father and I saved." Evan ran a hand through his hair, pacing the porch like a trapped animal. "Mom, this is insane. You can't just do that without talking to me." "I tried talking," I said quietly. "You stopped listening." Laura scoffed. "This is because of that stupid text, isn't it? You're overreacting. We told you we were busy." "You told me I did not matter," I said, looking directly at her. "Those were your words." Evan's face flickered for a moment. Guilt, maybe. Or calculation. It vanished quickly. "We're under a lot of pressure," he said, lowering his voice, changing tactics. "You know that. You know we're struggling. This is not the time to pull support." "Support?" I repeated. "Is that what you call taking money without permission?" Laura's eyes widened just slightly. "What are you talking about?" "I saw the transfers," I said. "Ones I did not approve. Ones I did not recognize." Silence fell between us, heavy and telling. Evan stopped pacing. He looked at Laura. She did not look back at him. "That's not what it looks like," Evan said finally. "It's complicated." "Then explain it," I said. "Explain everything, right now." Laura's composure cracked. "We don't owe you a full accounting," she said sharply. "You offered to help. You can't punish us because you changed your mind." "I did not change my mind," I replied. "I opened my eyes." Evan stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Mom, please, just reopen the accounts. We can talk about boundaries later. Right now, we need that money." Need. The word hung in the air, heavy with desperation. "For what?" I asked. "What exactly do you need it for?" Neither of them answered. That was when I knew. Whatever they were hiding was bigger than missed payments or bad planning. It was something that scared them, something that had finally caught up. "I'm not letting you inside," I said calmly. "And I'm not reopening anything." Laura's face hardened. "You're making a huge mistake." "No," I said. "I'm correcting one." Evan looked at me then, really looked at me, as if seeing a stranger where his mother used to be. "You're choosing this," he said bitterly. "You're choosing money over family." I shook my head. "I'm choosing respect and safety." They stood there for another moment, anger and panic tangled together. Then Laura grabbed Evan's arm. "Let's go," she said. "She'll regret this." They turned and walked back down the steps, their shoulders rigid, their whispers sharp and urgent. I closed the door and locked it. Only then did my legs begin to shake. I leaned against the door, my heart racing, knowing with absolute certainty that this was not over, not even close. The knock came the next morning, but this time it was not from my son. 2 uniformed officers stood on my front porch, their posture calm but serious. Behind them, a gray sedan idled at the curb. My first thought was that something terrible had happened, an accident, a hospital call. My heart jumped into my throat. "Mrs. Carter?" one of them asked. "Yes," I said, gripping the edge of the door. "I'm Detective Samuel Ortiz. This is Detective Reynolds. May we come in for a moment?" The world tilted slightly. I nodded and stepped aside. We sat at my dining table, the same table where Evan had once done his homework, where Daniel and I had planned our future. The detectives placed a thin folder between us. "We're investigating a financial matter involving your son," Detective Ortiz said gently. "We believe you may be connected to it, though not in the way you might fear." I felt my pulse in my ears. "What kind of financial matter?" He took a breath. "Your son filed for bankruptcy earlier this year." The words landed hard. "That can't be right," I said. "He never told me that." "That's part of the problem," Detective Reynolds added. "During the bankruptcy proceedings, your son declared he had no significant outside financial support, no family contributions, no shared assets." My mouth went dry. Ortiz slid the folder toward me. Inside were copies of bank statements, my bank statements, highlighted deposits, dates, amounts, the same numbers I had written in my notebook. "These transfers were not disclosed to the court," he said. "That makes them relevant to a federal investigation." I stared at the papers, my hands trembling. "Are you saying he broke the law?" "Yes, ma'am," Reynolds said quietly. "We believe your son intentionally concealed assets and income to mislead the court. That is a serious offense." A wave of nausea hit me. All those nights I had reassured myself that he was just struggling, just overwhelmed. He had been lying not only to me, but to the government. "Am I in trouble?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "No," Ortiz said quickly. "You are not a suspect. In fact, your recent actions likely protected you. Had those accounts remained accessible, they could have been frozen or seized." I thought of the timing, the text, the accounts, the knock on my door. If I had waited even a day, everything could have been different. "He was going to drain them," I whispered. "Wasn't he?" Ortiz did not answer directly. He did not need to. "We're asking for your cooperation," he said. documentation, records, any communication where your son explained why he needed the money. I nodded slowly. I have everything. After they left, the house felt hollow. I sat alone for a long time, staring at the wall, replaying every conversation, every promise, every time I had chosen trust over instinct. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Please tell her to talk to us. We are running out of time. Another message followed immediately. This does not have to get ugly. My hands shook as I locked the screen. They knew. Evan and Laura knew the investigation had begun, and now they were afraid. That afternoon, my neighbor called. She had seen Evan's car circle the block earlier, not stopping, just watching. Fear crept in then, real and cold. I called the legal aid clinic the detectives had recommended. By evening, I was sitting across from an attorney who listened carefully, her expression growing more serious with each detail. You need to protect yourself, she said, legally and physically. What does that mean? I asked. It means no contact, no meetings alone, and if they return to your home, you call the police immediately. That night I barely slept. Every sound outside made my heart race. Every headlight passing the window felt like a threat. Just before dawn, I realized something that settled deep in my chest. This was no longer about hurt feelings or family conflict. It was about survival. And if I did not stand firm now, they would take everything I had left. The court date came faster than I expected. Winter tightened its grip on Chicago, turning the sidewalks into sheets of ice and the sky into a constant dull gray. I wrapped myself in my heaviest coat and walked into the courthouse with my attorney beside me, my steps slow but steady. I kept my eyes forward. I did not want to look around, not yet. Evan was already there. He sat at the defense table, shoulders hunched, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles were white. Laura sat a few seats away, not beside him, not touching him. She stared straight ahead, her face carefully blank. The distance between them felt louder than any argument. When our eyes met, Evan flinched. The hearing was not dramatic. No shouting, no sudden revelations shouted across the room. It was worse than that. It was quiet, clinical. Fact after fact laid out with precision. Dates, amounts, statements. My money, traced and highlighted, now stripped of every excuse he had ever given me. The judge spoke calmly, almost gently, as she explained what the evidence suggested. Intentional misrepresentation, concealment of assets, a pattern, not a mistake. Laura's attorney stood next. He spoke about cooperation, about her willingness to provide information, about fear and pressure inside the marriage. I felt something twist inside me as I listened. Not sympathy, recognition. She was saving herself. When Evan's attorney finally spoke, his voice sounded tired. There was no strong defense left to offer, only explanations that sounded hollow, even to him. I was asked to stand. My legs felt weak, but I stood anyway. The courtroom was silent as I spoke. I did not raise my voice. I did not accuse. I told the truth. I explained the money, the lies, the message that told me I did not matter. The fear I felt when they came to my door demanding access again. I did not look at Evan while I spoke. I could not. The judge listened, nodding slowly. When I finished, she thanked me and told me to sit. That was it. No questions, no cross-examination. By the end of the hearing, the outcome was clear. The investigation would proceed. Formal charges would follow. Conditions were placed immediately. No contact with me, no access to any accounts connected to my name. Travel restrictions. As the judge stood and left the room, the weight of it all finally settled. Evan lowered his head into his hands. Laura stood quickly, whispering to her attorney, already turning away. I stayed seated for a moment longer, my heart pounding, my chest tight. Then I stood and walked out of the courtroom without looking back. Outside, the cold air hit my face like a wake-up call. I took a deep breath and let it fill my lungs. For the first time in weeks, my hands stopped shaking. That night, alone in my house, I locked every door and checked every window. I made tea and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the steam rising from the cup. I felt grief. I felt exhaustion. But underneath it all was something unexpected. Relief. The truth was no longer mine to carry alone. The consequences were no longer mine to fear. I had done what I could. I had protected myself. And whatever came next for my son, painful as it was, would no longer be built on my silence. For the first time since that Tuesday morning message, I slept through the night. By the time spring arrived, the city began to breathe again, and so did I. The legal process continued without me at the center of it. I was no longer being called every day, no longer waiting for updates with my stomach in knots. My attorney handled what needed to be handled. The authorities did their work. My role was finished. For the first time in years, my days were my own. I returned to simple routines. Morning walks along the block when the snow finally melted. Coffee at the same kitchen table, now cleared of paperwork and fear. I started volunteering again, this time at a small senior center not far from my house, helping others sort through bills and paperwork, warning them gently about the signs of financial manipulation I had once ignored. The house felt different too, lighter. I packed away boxes of old expectations I had been carrying without realizing it. I moved furniture. I painted the spare room a soft, warm color and turned it into a place just for me. A reading chair by the window, shelves filled with books I had always meant to read. Christmas came and went quietly. I woke up that morning alone, yes, but not lonely. I made myself breakfast, lit a candle beside the small tree, and sat by the window watching the city wake up. There were no demands, no guilt, no fear of the phone ringing. I thought about my son. I thought about the boy he had been and the man he chose to become. I did not feel anger anymore. I felt acceptance. Some stories do not end with reconciliation. Some end with clarity. I had learned that love does not require self-destruction, that protecting yourself is not abandonment, and that peace, once chosen, has a way of growing quietly but steadily. As the morning light filled the room, I realized something simple and powerful. I had not lost everything. I had finally found myself again. I used to believe that being a good mother meant enduring everything in silence, that love meant giving even when it hurt, that family deserved unlimited forgiveness no matter the cost. I was wrong. What this experience taught me is that love without respect slowly turns into erasure. When someone stops seeing you as a person and starts seeing you as a resource, the relationship has already been broken, even if blood ties remain. Standing up for myself did not make me cruel. It made me honest. It made me safe. I learned that boundaries are not walls built out of anger. They are doors you close so you can finally breathe. And sometimes, the hardest truth to accept is this: you can love someone deeply and still walk away when they choose to harm you. Choosing yourself is not selfish, it is survival. 5 core lessons from the story. 1. Love without respect eventually becomes manipulation, even within families. 2. Financial abuse often hides behind guilt, urgency, and emotional pressure. 3. Silence can be strength when it protects your dignity and safety. 4. Setting boundaries is not betrayal. It is self-preservation. 5. Is never too late to reclaim your life, your peace, and your identity. If this story resonated with you, please like and share this video so others who need it can find it. I would really love to hear from you in the comments. What lesson did you take from this story? And which city are you watching from today? Your story matters too.